You got it. You're a pro.
So this is actually almost a brake on the wheel, and
And you broke it.
I think this is called you broke it, you bought it. It's all gummed up down here in Tifton, Georgia, y'all. Some guy, don't know who, put too much force on the bar. The wood was feeding through the saw too fast. It all got stuck. We're having to stop to unclog this saw a board at a time. I think somebody could have thought of putting a reverse gear on this thing. Y'all remember this when you're thinking about the glamorous Hollywood lifestyle. We had to show the improper technique first. Now I think we should show people the proper technique.
Right.
Would you, the master, take over here? Can I blow the whistle?
Oh, twice.
I hope I don't mess that up. Let's see, twice. 2 times on the whistle. My feet came off the ground. Greg Tucker, you are stoking the fire over here.
I am indeed.
That's some pretty hard work. Number one, I want one for my backyard barbecue. 3-4 weeks ago, we're out on the road filming somewhere in the middle of nowhere. I have a flat tire. We pull over. I take out my cell phone. I call AAA. Within an hour, they're there. My tire's fixed. We're moving on down the road. If I had a flat tire in 1870, that's not the way it would go. In fact, I'd probably be coming to see you.
You would indeed, and believe it or not, my father, in his lifetime, they had to take their wagons to the blacksmith to have them repaired.
They had to come to someone like you and say, I need a harness piece, I need a bracket, I need a bit, I need something. And a blacksmith's job was to understand and to know how to make all of that.
We're from 1870 to 1910, and by those time periods, I will admit they had suffered a great deal from Industrial Revolution. There were certain things could be bought,
right,
but the further outlying you were, the more dependent you were on them. I always say it's as much art as science, because there is a great deal of science involved, and these guys, I think, happed up on much of that by happenstance. They weren't exactly certain why it worked, but it did.
This is heavy, number one. Number two, this is your raw material now. This is what you start with.
It is indeed. This was the original material that Smiths used for the first 3,000 years or so. This is an
3,000 years.
Yeah, about the first 3,000 years Smiths worked, they were working wrought iron. And this is a piece probably from perhaps late 1800s, early 1900s.
Right.
It's no longer produced on Earth anywhere. We think it's probably part of a harrow axle at one point.
Now that makes sense, because you can still see the rectangular and squared off shape that would have been that axle that turned that. So this is it a very pure iron, a very impure iron? What are you starting with here as a raw material?
It's hard to quantify. It's a lot less quantifiable than today's iron. Today's iron is very consistent, at least if it's made in America. We know pretty much the standards for our iron. This stuff, it depended on how much wrought was put into the iron.
Okay.
There's an old saying that says you either swear by it or swear at it. And it depends on the purity of the iron. So there was a huge difference in the amount of time that went into some of it, and thus the quality thereof. Yeah. Wrought iron tends to crack if you don't work it properly. That's the downside to it. And so I may indeed crack this a few times and have to put it back in the fire and weld it.
They started this day giving me my trusty dusty work gloves.
Gotcha.
So I'm putting them on whether I need them or not.
Okay.
All right.
We'll go right through the entrance here.
Right in the,
Under those coals.
like I put my baked potatoes on the grill. Now we can see this is still sticking out the end
Yes.
here.
And the heat will not travel this far for a long time. I'll be able to handle it.
So you're still going to be able to work with that while that's getting to a temperature that you need to make it malleable.
That's right.
All right, can I turn this crank? Would I break anything? There's no effort required in this. That is kind of perpetual motion. It's a very well balanced
It is.
machine. It's doing all the work for me. How old would you say this furnace and setup is here?
That's probably turn of the century, maybe around 1900. Could be late 1800s. I know that patent came about around 1870. We have an anvil behind you that dates to 1833.
Wow. I tell you what, I have worked pieces of a day on a farm today, and I'm already starting to feel it. I think I plowed 3 whole rows. I've been turning this wheel 3 whole minutes. I've done a few other things here and there. I broke the sawmill. So, but some people were doing bits and pieces and all of this every day of their life, Greg, and this was just a day at work on the farm. And what's funny is 100 years from now, people are gonna look back at some of the things that we do and go, whoo, they had it hard. So it's going right on the anvil then. Oh, wow, look at this. Yeah, all right. Woo! How hot is that, Greg?
Oh, 1800 degrees.
1800 degrees.
The object is to eventually get this to be about 3/8 of an inch thick.
Right.
About half this thickness. And by that point, it will be about this long. And we're going to make an object called a froe. Now, we won't have time to make the complete thing.
Yeah, sure.
But a froe was used to, usually to split off shingles or shakes for houses. Let's go left to right if you'd like to.
You can feel it give a little bit.
Yeah.
Not a lot. It's not real happy about cooperating,
And it's a lot softer than modern iron, I can tell you.
but it's cooperating. And this process, give me a ballpark. If I came in here and you didn't have a horseshoe made and ready for me to just take a horseshoe, how long would it take you to make a horseshoe?
A good smith can probably whip out a horseshoe, the whole thing, in around 15 to 20 minutes he can whip out a shoe.
Okay, so a lot of this is like everything else. Practice makes perfect.
That's it. That's it.
Back in the fire?
Back in the fire.
That was just maybe 2 minutes you were able to work that.
Right, and we'll do, to make that froe, I'll probably do 50 or maybe 50 or 60 heats.
So that same process you just did, where we got it up to heat, stood there and cranked that knob, pulled it out, swung that big hammer for 2-3 minutes, you gotta do that maybe 60 more times.
To do the complete finish, yes, so that'd be about right.
Wow,
That'd be about right.
you're gonna need a little more help.
Hi, I'm Chef Holly Shute with Georgia Grown with the Georgia Department of Agriculture. And today we're going to be featuring sweet Georgia Vidalia onions. We've got some sweet Vidalia onions that have been peeled, and we're going to use an ice cream scoop to scoop the center out of them. We've got some fresh basil. We're just going to rough chop that. Chopped up tomatoes, cooked diced chicken, some fresh mozzarella diced. Sprinkle a little bit of salt and pepper on that. Add our fresh chopped basil. I'm going to mix that up and then fill our Vidalia onions. I'm going to put these in a cast iron skillet and pop them in a 350-degree oven for 30 to 40 minutes. You want them to be tender with a fork. We have a great entree, side dish, or just a snack. Enjoy your sweet Vidalia onions.
Vidalia onions, hand-planted, hand-picked by chefs.
George Vaughan, this process started several hours ago when we came out here and fired up this still.
About at 11 o'clock.
So, and now we're looking at somewhere around 3, something
about,
like that.
just about.
Now this pitch that they've been boiling down all day is about ready to come out the other side.
That's correct.
The turpentine has been draining off steady ever since that fire hit peak, and we saw that first liquid come out of there. Now the last trickles of turpentine have come out of that, and now we're ready to get the pitch.
We'll turn the rosin out of the kettle.
Right.
But you got to get the fire out first to stop it from cooking. We're just putting the fire out. It has nothing to do with the process.
So this is done, and this has nothing to do with that process.
Fire safety.
This is just making sure you don't burn down your turpentine steel once this process is over.
That would be a
That's
goal.
always a good goal. I wish people could smell how good that smells. It is like if you took a Christmas tree and boiled it down to the very finest part of that smell. That's what's in the air right now. So now they're going to actually pull the plug off of the top of this that's been boiling all day to see if it's ready to come out.
Yes, you would like to have some foam in there. If it's flat with no flame, that's not as good. But hopefully when we'll hear in just a minute now whether there's foam on top.
We got foam. We got foam. We have foam. So that's great. So now it's going to be time to go around to the other side.
Correct.
And what you've been making all day long is about to come out the other side.
That's correct.
All right, let's go. George, this is the moment we've been waiting for literally all day long. And it's funny, if people look on the other side of this rope, they'll see a throng of people standing around. This is what they've been waiting for too. You would think fresh watermelons were gonna come rolling out of there, but what it is this pitch that you've been boiling down all day long.
We call it rosin.
Rosin.
And it's the byproduct from when you distill gum, pine gum. The whole process is boiling off the turpentine.
Right.
Because that was, the time this was done in the 1890s, that's what was valuable. This was, I mean, sometimes they throw it on the ground. It wasn't until about turn of the century that they figured out how to use it in industrial chemistry. And you see those dip buckets in a minute. When we get all of it down in the bottom vat, we'll start dipping it by hand. They're stirring the foam around, trying to get as much out as it can.
So just trying to get it as blended, not leave anything stuck on those walls.
That's the key to this, because whatever we leave behind, we have to get back inside and clean. So
right.
They're trying to get everything out the door when they open the door.
Now once it starts rolling, how long does it take to drain that?
Less than 5 minutes, about 5 minutes or so. I mean, when it comes, it gushes.
How close are we? Is it a countdown? Do we go
started.
10, 9? Here it
Just
comes.
started.
Look, coming out of there now.
Just getting started. It'll be more.
There it
start
comes.
Off slow, and then they'll.
And that's still about 350 degrees.
300. Yeah, it's a little cooler today, probably 250, 275.
Right.
Typically it'd be about 300
You would
degrees.
still know if you stuck your hand in it.
Yes, you would. Well, this is basically just taking the whiskey stilling process and putting in gum instead of sour mash. I mean, it's identical.
Doesn't taste as good. George, Chris, I just take the stick and now watch what these fellas are doing. I cannot get over, it's fairly deep. Wow, and fairly heavy. Y'all, I think this is gonna take a minute.
Schumann Farms has 4 foundational pillars that we get up every day and go to work and strive to: customer service, quality of product, innovative marketing, and giving back. If somebody were to ask me what business Schumann Farms is in, I would tell them customer service. Everything flows down and out from customer service. Without our customers, there is no business. Quality of product, we're in fresh produce, subject to weather, subject to all sorts of things. When I say quality of product, I want consistency. We want consistent quality. And then innovative marketing. How do we as a company help our customers sell our product? So we want to go around to the consumer, create consumer demand, and have them pull it through the channel of distribution. And then giving back is one of our foundational pillars. You know, we've been blessed with resources, and we feel like it is our responsibility to be good stewards of those resources. In our business, being a good steward means giving back to the communities that support our products.
Sweet potato cookies, sweet potato pound bread.
How many ways can you use a North Carolina sweet potato? North Carolina sweet potatoes are not just so good, they're so good for you. We've known that for a long time. That's why North Carolina farms 2 out of every 3 sweet potatoes grown in America.
Mashed sweet potatoes.
North Carolina sweet potatoes. And don't forget, it's just one word. You can look it up.
Sweet potato pie.
I kind of have always had a picture in my mind that the guys up in the front of the train had it made with the cool breeze coming through the windows and all this kind of stuff. How hot is it in here? Brock Fitzgerald, tell me what it's like to stand in here all day long.
Well, during July specifically, it's about 145 degrees up in this cab.
Oh.
So we have all the windows open, all the ventilation going.
Now you are an engineer.
Yes, sir.
Brian Dow, you are also an engineer.
That is correct.
Now, is that a certification? You don't just show up here and walk in the gate and go, I'm an engineer, let me drive this train.
No, it takes months and months and just about a whole year to really get this train down pat before you're allowed to go by yourself.
Do you guys do this regularly? I mean, this I don't think being a train engineer at ABAC is probably a full-time career.
I'm 19 years old, and not many 19-year-olds can say that they know how to drive a steamboat.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many teens do you know that can drive a train?
How many anybody's do you know who can drive a train?
Exactly.
I will say one thing, though.
Two of them now.
That's true. Now I know exactly, too. Lane Holbrook.
That's me.
I'm sitting here with you in front of a very strange-looking box. You know what this box is, but I think what people need to understand first is where we're sitting. This is no grist mill. Usually there was one per community or one that served multiple communities.
Most of the mills, at least in this area, were going to be pond-ran mills, not river-ran mills. And they would dam up an area that would create a lake or a pond of about 100 or 700 acres, very large. And so that entire process was very expensive. And so that's the reason you'll have one per community.
So it had to be water to make it turn.
That's right.
If you were on a river, that was great. If you weren't on a river, how did they take a still pond and turn it into a flowing stream that's going to power a grist mill?
Yeah, so basically you're going to build an area higher than where you need the water to flow.
And then put your sluice and
That's
your
right.
mill lower
than that.
And then you're creating a permanent gravity feed.
That's right.
And then you're just as well as on a river.
That's right. So this is a fish trap, and you had what were called miller's rights. Even if you own land that touched the mill pond,
It's still not
only the
yours.
miller is allowed to take the fish from the pond.
So he could do whatever he wanted.
Whatever he wanted, and so if there were catfish in the pond, he could throw an old trap in there. When you dropped off your corn, came back to pick up some grits later, he could pull a trap or two out of the water and say, well, hey, why don't you take 20 pounds of catfish home with you?
Well, I'm
out of
telling
steel?
you, if I'm taking 20 pounds of cornmeal, I need 20 pounds
Exactly,
of catfish so I can fry that stuff up.
Every 10 years or so, they would say, well, you know what, we're going to let you guys fish the mill pond. We're going to sell tickets for $1 a piece. You can fish for 2 days.
Keep what you catch?
Yeah, keep what you catch. We're going to sell 700 tickets. They'd make $700 for a weekend. Which roughly, you do the inflation cost there. He's making $15,000 to $20,000 in a weekend.
Wow.
Just for letting people fish in the pond that he's told them they couldn't for the whole time.
Well, that's what you call anticipation.
That's right.
Where does the food come from? Lane's Southern Orchards. Peaches, pecans, homemade baked goods, jams, wine, and candies, plus some of the finest Southern fare you'll find anywhere in our Peachtree Cafe, just off exit 142 on I-75 in Fort Valley, Georgia.
When you purchase Georgia-grown products, you support farmers, families, and this proud state we call home. Together, we will keep Georgia growing.
At Red Sun Farms, we understand how important it is to know where your food comes from. Our master growers select the very best non-GMO seeds to propagate and harvest in our high-tech greenhouses. Our farms are home to different varieties of tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers in both conventional and organic formats. Whether you're enjoying produce from our farms in Mexico, the USA, or Canada, your family will be enjoying the highest quality and most flavorful produce year-round. When you buy from Red Sun Farms, you will experience our seed-to-plate difference.
From North Carolina's mountains to the sea, when it comes to selecting and serving the best local foods and produce for you and your family, it's got to be NC.
Sam Ray, what happens right here in this building?
So this is where it got ground. You would have somebody doing this as like their side job, like Mr. Davis, who ran this mill. He worked during the week at the sawmill, and then he would come up here on Saturdays, and the farmers would bring their corn or their wheat to get ground, and he would grind it up for them. And instead of having to worry about having enough money to pay him to grind it, he just took a share of what he ground.
People would kind of make a day out of, we're going to the mill to get our corn ground.
Yeah, and that's how the farmers did on Saturdays. Even if they didn't have corn to bring up, they would come up here, and this was like their hangout spot at that time. They would come up, they would play cards, fish, and back here on our corn bins in the back, these are the original bins, they would take their fish and carve the outline of their fish into the corn bins. And they've even got dates from between 1903 to 1905, and one man even carved his name into it.
The water wheel is up under us. Right. That's coming from that damn pond. That water from that sluice is turning that wheel. That wheel is turning the grindstones. What kind of stone is that?
It's a granite stone. They each weigh 1,400 pounds.
1,400 pounds.
And there's two of them. There's a top stone and a bottom stone, and the bottom stone is completely stationary. The top stone's the one that gets raised and lowered to determine how fine your grind is, and it also is the one that turns and actually grinds the corn.
Now, a good part of the reason that I make this show, I love showing people where the food is going and where we're going next and what's next. But one thing I especially appreciate is being able to show them where we've come from. What speaks to your heart about coming out and getting involved in an effort like this?
I can remember in the 50s, growing up, I used to sit in the cotton field with my mom and dad and all them while they were picking cotton, when I was little. Like I was telling my, some of the people is that if we wanted chicken that night, I had to catch one.
Sam, you might not have ever had to go catch a chicken yourself. What's your family legacy?
Not really much to tell. Most of my family grew up poor, kind of just living on the land and everything. I remember even when I was little, we had chickens. If we wanted eggs, we went out and collected the eggs. We took them back in the house. You had your own eggs. You didn't worry about going to the store and buying a 12-pack of eggs.
Son, don't ever say you don't have much legacy again.
Hey, that's good.
That is your legacy.
That is great.
And that is the legacy of more Americans than you would ever believe. Greg, I tell you, we started this, seemed like a long time ago today.
It does indeed, yeah.
We are finally to the end of a long, arduous day. I have swung hammers, I have sheared sheep, I have plowed rows, I have done all of this. I'm looking forward to a hamburger and a place to lay down. The difference is, folks like you and me don't have to do this every day, but our ancestors, this was every day of their life.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've read countless journals of guys that smith 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. I cannot imagine.
You didn't finish any of these pieces today because when we left you had another 48 or 50 hammerings of that one bar that we were doing, but this is a water moccasin that you brought to life from that same kind of wrought iron that we were looking at earlier.
That's right.
Probably the most important thing that a blacksmith had to do back in the day was fix flat tires.
That's it.
That's what that was all about.
That's it.
Farming has never been easy work. It's always been hard. It's always been dirty. It's always been sweaty. We're talking about what it was like 150 years ago, 100 years ago, 75 years ago. But guess what? Yesterday, it was still hot, it was still sweaty, and it was still hard, and it's still gonna be that way tomorrow out here where the food comes from.
are a member-driven nonprofit association of leaders from all facets of the produce industry.
Formed more than 20 years ago, we continue to promote the value of fresh fruits and vegetables in the Southeast through networking, innovation, community, and education.
Today, we are a thriving organization who continues to share and pursue our vision, mission, values, and goals.
We are the Southeast Produce Council.
For you, this isn't just a job, it's a way of life. At Farm Credit, your goal is our goal. We specialize in financing for land, farms,